Alright, here we go, painting a nine-tailed firefox, starting with, I need a base coat over this black primer to lighten up a bit. So we're base coating or undercoating with some Malifaux model color Iraqi sand, and I have to explain, I really detest painting fire. I don't think it's something that can be captured in a solid object, a three-dimensional object. So I really hate painting fire. It's like painting smoke. I don't think it can be done really accurately. So I really hate doing it. I avoid it whenever possible. This is not really a how-to video on painting fire. This is kind of how I came about doing it because I couldn't avoid it on this project. So there's your warning. And after that Iraqi base undercoat, we're using virtually only three colors on this miniature. We got model color light orange, model color deep yellow, and some white. And I started off with a base coat of deep yellow with a little bit of light orange, but then I decided to go just full straight yellow on this miniature, and took a couple coats to cover. And I'm trying to keep the paint thin because with it's all gonna be one color and it's all gonna be so light. I can't put on thick coats because I don't want to build up any debris or anything on the miniature. I need everything nice and smooth. The trick to painting fire now is to do it in reverse. Rather than putting the dark colors in the recesses, you put the light colors in the recesses, then put the dark colors on where the highlights would normally go. So I need to put white into the recesses, and at first I decided to try cheating a little bit, or taking a shortcut I should say, by using some white ink. And yes, white ink does exist. It's really hard to find. You usually have to go through art stores to find it, and even then it's still quite difficult. So I tried this at first, didn't work really well because you know, inks and washes, they go where they want to go. They don't go necessarily where you want them to go. So I'm gonna have to redo this in a second. So because the white ink kind of sucked, I'm gonna do it the old fashioned method, just mixed in some white in with the deep yellow, and proceeding to paint it carefully all into the recesses. The paint is a little thinner than normal, so I'm kind of letting it flow where it need be, but trying a more accurate placement, which will give better results than what happened with the white ink. Once that was done, I had to go back and clean up a little bit with the yellow color again, because as I said, that white ink kind of just goes wherever it feels like going. And also, I'm repairing any mistakes I made when putting in the white. I haven't painted recesses in a model like this in quite a while, and this model is quite finely detailed, so it's very easy to goof up and get paint where you don't want it when you have all these tiny little details. So this is just a cleanup step here. Now with our white shade done, we can start putting on the darker highlights, and doing that just by mixing in some of the light orange in with the yellow. And again, I haven't done this in a long time, so this is kind of an experiment for me too. And the process is the same as layering, just thin translucent layers of paints. The trick is it's actually harder to do than normal highlighting. The reason for that is because when you're putting a translucent lighter color on a darker color, you can slowly build it up, basically very slowly lighten it. But when you're putting a translucent darker color over a lighter color, it darkens it much faster. So I had to use really thin layers here. Otherwise it really stood out. So it was a bit more difficult than the standard layering job. adding more light orange into the mix now. And originally, I think what I'm going to talk about while I'm painting the miniature and record it now, I was going to say you don't really want to dry brush fire like this, because it could end up chalky, and then that's definitely not going to look like fire. However, I did end up dry brushing some of these highlight colors, because the details on this Shang figure are just so minute and so hard to pick out individually with a brush. I just frankly said the heck with it and did some very light dry brushing on some of these layers, which I think we'll see eventually. But yeah, just slowly adding more orange in every time. I think I did like 3 layers, but well, let's go to the next clip and see. And here we go with a little bit more orange and a little bit of dry brushing. Being really careful about this. There's very, very little paint on the brush, because I don't want it to get chunky or clog up any of the details or see any rough marks, because that'll really destroy the look of the fire. So very tiny amount of paint on the brush, and it's also a very soft, large brush to avoid any grit or grain or brush strokes, anything like that. But yeah, without dry brushing, I couldn't have done this. It would have taken me forever. And here we are on the final highlight stage, which is straight light orange. And I am dry brushing, but I'm also using a combination here of dry brushing and then going back with some thinned out paint to help smooth out that dry brushing to smooth it out, and so it's not so obvious, because your rough fire would not look good. Now, the dry brushing did leave a bit of chalkiness, as it's wont to do, and to relieve some of that, I'm putting on a what technically is called a glaze of Vallejo yellow ink. A glaze, it's kind of like a wash, but it's not designed to go into the recesses. It's designed to go over the entire model in like one equal, even coat. You don't let it pool. You make a glaze by just taking an ink and making it really, really, really thin, and then just brushing it on like you would paint normally. Again, it's not designed to add shade. It's basically to smooth out and tie colors in together. So by putting this on, it'll tie the colors in. It'll bring the whites a bit more yellow, and it'll bring the oranges a bit more closer to yellow, and it'll help smooth out that rough dry brushing. Now, because of all that dry brushing and that glaze, I basically lost most of my white shade colors, so I'm going back and putting them in again. I did this twice. First was a mix of the deep yellow and white, and then once that was dry, I went back and did it again, which is straight white in just like the deepest recesses. Now, the question is, which direction do I think that... What's the better way to paint this? To paint the highlights first and then work your way down to the shades, or do the way I did and paint the shades first and work your way up to the highlights? I don't know. This, like I said, this video is... I don't know how to paint fire. I'm kind of just showing you how I did it, and you can decide on your own which works best for you. So, yes, I painted the shade first, but then with all the work I ended up filling in all the shades, so I had to go back and redo it again. It probably would have saved time if I did it at the end instead, but you know, some of it was still there, and it kind of remains as a guide to tell me where to put this color now. So it's kind of up to you which way you want to do it. One last step was to add just a bit more color to the tips of the fire. I really wish I had some deep orange in my paint box, but I didn't, so I had to add a very tiny amount of red to the light orange, which I really did not want to do. Fire is not red. Stick with oranges, stick with yellows. Do not use red. So again, I just added a real small amount because I really didn't want this looking red, but I thought it needed just a bit more contrast in the overall paint job. And there we go, we're all done, and it came out okay for the fact that I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I really, really detest painting fire. I could definitely do better, but again, I just really do not like painting fire. I don't think it can be done exactly right on a solid object. It just, you lose the intangibility of fire when you paint it on a solid solid object. But there you go, it is all done, and I don't have to worry about painting it again for another 10 years. And one last thing, I did paint the eyes and the teeth in this traditional way just because I felt it needed some sort of substance to it, you know, so it is solid in some sense, you know, maybe the rest is solid just, you know, intangible fire, but the bite in the eyes are more tangible, which I think sets off the whole thing. But that is it. I hope my little goofy project here helps, and as always, thanks for watching.